I'm joined today by Rosanne Priest. It was late in 2017 that Rosanne went through the devastating loss of her baby daughter, Holly Rose. I should warn our listeners that we'll be touching on some deeply moving aspects here as we discuss pregnancy, bereavement, and trying to start over following the loss of a child. Rosanne, I'll let you pick up the story.
I have a little boy. He's 6 years old and he's downstairs playing happily. I was expecting another baby, his little sister, who was due to be born in February. And there was no sign of anything wrong with the pregnancy. And I'd had all the usual tests and so on and so forth, and everything was supposedly normal until the 21st of December, right before Christmas, when I was enormous. And because I was so huge, that was a sign that there was something not quite right. I'd just got too much fluid around the baby. So I went for a routine scan to see if there was a reason that there was that I was quite so enormous, at which point things went very, very rapidly wrong, and it turned out that things weren't normal at all. She was very poorly, but we didn't know at that point what was wrong. We only knew that there was something wrong, and in order to give her any chance at all, I had to have a C-section the following day, and it was hoped that they would find out what the problem was and that they could cure her. But unfortunately, she only lived for about 15 minutes. And that was right before Christmas. I got out of hospital the following day, so 23rd of December. And of course, because I have got an older son, I sort of just had to carry on, because for his sake, really, because you do. And that meant I was straight into wrapping presents and putting out mince pies for Father Christmas and sort of pretending that everything was okay when very clearly it wasn't. So almost immediately my outlet became writing. And on Christmas Day, having survived Christmas lunch with my parents and unwrapping presents with a very excited 6-year-old and doing all of the things that one would normally do on Christmas Day, I started to write, because, obviously it was a lot to process.
Tell me a little bit more about the writing side of things, Rosanne. Is that something that you'd ever really used as an outlet at all in your life?
It is. I mean, interestingly, when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a writer. In fact, I think I said I was going to be a poet when I was about 5 years old. And I have got an English degree. I've always loved writing, but I've sort of never sat down to do it, if that makes sense. And I've never really thought that I've got anything sufficiently interesting to write about, or maybe that anybody would want to read. So I've kind of always dabbled. I've always enjoyed writing, but I never really had anything particular to say. And then, suddenly I had a very intense need to sit down and write, specifically about Holly. And at first, I think I was writing mostly for me. I didn't even really know why, mostly for my own reasons. But I did start to share it. I did start to put it out in public. And I realised that it wasn't just me. It was also helping other people. And I kept writing for that reason. But I think I'm also writing for her.
I can tell this is really, it's obviously still really raw for you. Have you considered what your process of healing and recovery might have been if you hadn't have been able to find that channel? I mean, as difficult as it is now, there has clearly been an opportunity for you to share some emotion. So if we took that away altogether, what sort of place do you think you'd be in now?
answer that in a way. Well, I mean, obviously, when you've lost a child, it's never going to go away. You're never going to be completely okay again. I think when she died as suddenly as she did, I was in a place where I absolutely had to have something positive come out of her existence. And I feel like the writing is part of that urgent need to have something positive come out of her life. Without that, she was only here for 15 minutes. So really, what could she have contributed to the world, if you know what I mean? If I'd not been able to, in some way, talk about her and get her story out there.
But you were a long stage into the pregnancy, weren't you? So while you say what could she have contributed to life, and what had she after only 15 minutes, I think perhaps, any woman that's ever gone through a pregnancy, and it's particularly as long as you had, would say that actually that baby existed well and truly in your life before that point.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think any life is valid, and I think does have an impact on the parents, of a baby that was loved. It's always going to have. I think in the long run, it's always going to have a positive impact on the family and people who who loved that baby, because or I like to think so anyway. But yes, I think so. Yeah, I like to think that by sort of telling her story and sharing it with others, that she did have a wider impact on on other people that she never had the opportunity to meet.
I'm interested to know what happens woman to woman after you go through the loss of a baby, and as swiftly as you did. Can you recall what some of the reaction was from your friends and family who did, clearly the best job they ever could in terms of reacting appropriately? Can you remember that, or is it now a bit of a blur?
I won't lie, I do have quite a lot of memory loss around the sort of immediate aftermath, which is I now understand a fairly sort of normal thing. I am in touch with other women who tell me that that's what happened. I had a fairly amazing outpouring on social media. I've always had a sort of love-hate relationship with social media. It surprised me to find that I turned to social media at that time, because in some ways I'm quite a private person. I don't put everything out there. But for whatever reason, when this all happened, and I'd not even told people I was pregnant, that was the thing. Because I'm a singer and actress in my professional life, and pregnancy and performing aren't 100% compatible, shall we say. So I'd sort of not told everybody on social media that I was in fact expecting another baby. And then the night that I was admitted to hospital, I opened up about that, posted a photograph and said that I was in hospital, that I was about to have a C-section, that everything had gone horribly wrong, and that the baby might not live. And I did have an amazing outpouring of friends and strangers, actually, which got me through those first few days, I think. And that sort of gave me the strength to keep going in a way. And they do say there is nothing so there's nothing so touching as the kindness of strangers, and I did find that the support of people at that time was quite amazing in getting me through.
And what for you now, Rosanne? I mean, clearly it's still very recent, and obviously the writing's continuing to get you through. The fact that you're a mother, and, you know, you have family obligations as it is, but can you envisage a time, you know, 6 months hence? How do you want life to turn out from here?
Well, that's a good question. I think I will go back to work. I actually desperately want to go back to work. I'm in a difficult position at the moment because obviously being a singer and actress professionally, I am self-employed and I hadn't lined contracts up, which means that inevitably there is a gap in my career, whether I want it or not. And ironically, because she did live for those 15 minutes, I do qualify, in inverted commas, for maternity pay, and I have very mixed feelings about that. But I have had to use that time to take maternity leave because really, being self-employed, there is no alternative. I would love to go back to work because, to be honest with you, there is nothing more depressing than being on maternity leave without a baby. And I'm working towards that. I don't feel I'm going to have another baby. No. And when you go online and when you find support groups for having had a loss, there is a big focus towards having what they call a rainbow baby, which is, you know, a baby after loss. And I won't be one of those women. And it does, to a certain extent, it does feel like a slightly lonely place to be because that is almost the focus that everybody else is gearing towards, is trying again. And I know that with my current situation, I can't really, and I won't be. So I think in 6 months' time, that's a direction that I'm going to be taking the blog in, because there's a lot of support for women. Rowan, could you just give me a minute, please, darling? There's a lot of support for women who are working towards having another child throughout another pregnancy, and that is absolutely, that support that is out there is valid and worthwhile, and I've used that before as well because Rowan actually wasn't my first pregnancy. I lost another one before him, and so I do understand the need to have another child when you've had a loss. Rowan, please, could you just go downstairs for a minute? But it is quite a lonely place to be when you know you're not going to go down that road. And I think that's probably the direction I am going to take the blog in, because it's hard to find support when you know you've got to make the most of your life after a devastating loss, and you know you've got to rethink everything. I'd love to think that something, I hesitate to use the word better because I don't think that's what I really mean, but I would love to think that something better could come along, that life could be better. Thanks, Rowan. Could you just go downstairs for a minute? That life could turn out to be an improvement on the situation that I'm in currently. But that doesn't mean I will ever replace her. That doesn't mean that I'll ever stop being sorry that she's gone. But I think I have to try and work in a direction that I don't feel sad all the time. And that means finding something that wouldn't have happened had my life gone in the direction I thought it was going to go in a few months ago. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. And what about the rest of your sort of nucleus family? How have they coped?
Initially, my partner was in a worse state than I was. In the immediate aftermath, it was me that made the phone calls. It was me that told everybody. It was me that arranged the funeral. It was me that had to deal with everything because he really wasn't in any fit state. That was sort of in the hours and days after it happened. And he was, really in a terrible state, very upset about it. I held it together reasonably well. I think as time has gone on, I won't say we've switched places. He is now far more together and able to cope. And I think on a daily basis is probably not, I don't want to say he's not affected as deeply, because of course I'm sure that's not true. But he's dealing with it better as time has gone on. Whereas these days, I'm the one that wears my heart on the sleeve. I'm the one that's likely to randomly burst into tears. And I still feel like I need to be honest with people that I am still in that position. And some days he has to deal with stuff that I'm not capable of, and that's just the way it goes.
I can imagine this one might be a difficult question for you to answer, but can you say that what you've experienced in the last few months has ultimately changed you as a human being? Clearly it has, but what I'm trying to get to is there one thing about you that you couldn't have said about yourself prior to this experience? So is it that, as you say, you wear your heart on your sleeve more? Is it that you're more open? Is there anything that you can really say has come about as a result of this?
I mean, anyone who's lost a child will tell you that you are never the same person again. And that is true of me too. I think I was always quite an open person. I think I was always quite honest. I think these days I feel more of a need to be open about my situation, and I don't think anyone else is doing that, oddly enough. I mean, there are other people online, there are other people that have blogs, there are but you don't tend to meet them in everyday life. And a lot of my friends and people that I know in real life, they refer to me as brave, which I find I struggle with the word brave, because I think bravery requires an element of choice. You have to choose to face your demons in order to be truly brave. And if I was given a choice, I would run 1,000 miles in the other direction. But then on the other hand, it is a word that a lot of people have used. And I think what they mean about when they call me brave is just that I am willing to talk about things that nobody talks about. I think I always was that person. I just had no need to be quite so open about it before. And these days, that's something. Yeah, I do feel the need to sort of just keep talking, or writing, as it were.
Have you got any other overwhelming message for a woman who has, in the last days, weeks, experienced what you have been through?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important to know that there are others. There are other people who share the experience. There are other people who have walked these steps, and you do think that you will never get through it. You do think that you will never be the same person again. I think, I don't have any magic words that make it okay for somebody else going through the experience, because there aren't any. But I think it is possible to keep going. I think the difficulty with using words like that is the thing that keeps me going is my son. And I have to keep going for him. There are people out there who will have been through what I have and don't have children. And, I think that's probably even more difficult. But yeah, there are people. I think talk. There you go. I have not replied to that one very eloquently, but I think the only answer is talk, and there are people out there to talk to who can help you through. there we go. That wasn't my most eloquent response, I don't think.
You were perfectly eloquent for Eloquently Her, so thank you, Rosanne. I do really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing that story. It can't have been easy, and I do really, really wish you well, and we will certainly be featuring the link to your blog on the site.